quick agenda for tonight. We'll do some quick welcome and introductions, tell you who we are. Then we'll do a brief Leland overview and we'll dive straight into the panel and then we'll wrap up at the end. Some of these faces you may have seen if this is not your first session of Deferred MBA Week. My name is Amelia. I run content at Leland. It's pretty much my job to help you get access to the information that you need to navigate the Deferred MBA process and reach all your other goals. I'm extremely passionate about democratizing access to expertise and want to help you with whatever you need help with. So please feel free to reach out to me directly if there's anything that I can ever do to help you toward your goal. You will also see Emma in the chat. Huge shout out to her and Erica and John. There's a ton of work that goes into putting these events and these sessions together these weeks. So shout out to them for making that happen. Way more important than us, though, I would love to introduce you to our panelists for tonight. We have an absolutely stacked panel, so much knowledge and expertise, and I'm excited for you to hear from them. Panelists, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. Emily, I would love to start with you.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm Emily Lammers. I was a Princeton undergrad a very long time ago, more recently a Berkeley Haas MBA, class of 2015. I've spent most of my career in product marketing, product management at investment firms, and I've been coaching for almost a decade now. Really know the range of schools and all the different programs, but super excited about just how popular Deferred has gotten and excited to work with college students.
Thanks, Emily. Claire?
Hi there. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Raffson. I am calling in from Stanford GSB right now. I'm in my second year as an MBA and a joint degree with a master's in education, really focused on learning, storytelling, and developing others. I also was a deferred GSB and HBS dual admit, ended up choosing GSB, but I was in your shoes just about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I went to Dartmouth undergraduate, studied history and Native American studies, and then in my 4-year deferral, got to do the more traditional path. So worked in management consulting at Bain & Company in New York, did a stint at a tech private equity fund doing ESG and impact, and then was in VC doing early stage investing. I spent the summer storytelling at Nike. So I was doing brand management and planning there. And I've just dedicated to teaching, learning, and storytelling. And I'm happy to be with you all today.
Thanks, Claire. Tim, finish us off.
Hey everyone, Tim Fenton, super excited to be with you tonight. A little bit about me, I started my career at Goldman Sachs, and then I got my MBA at Chicago Booth, and I was an admissions fellow while I was at Booth, so super involved in the admissions process while I was on campus. I really like the admissions process, learned a lot about myself and feel like it's just a really cool experience. So I've been consulting ever since I graduated from Booth. So in my 5th year now. I also worked at BCG and just recently left BCG, and I do M&A and organic growth for a company called Lennox and work on their strategy team now. I recently tallied up, I've helped over 100 folks get into M7 schools across the full-time and deferred cycles. So super excited to be here and excited to be talking about essays. Super fun topic. So yeah.
Thanks, coaches. We only accept 5% of all the coach applications that we get. And then even among those, these are some of the best of the best. So super excited to get into the panel tonight. You know us, we would love to get to know you a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind answering the chat, where are you dialing in from? And then what is something you're excited about learning today? And maybe is there something about the essays that you really want to get into? This will also help me kind of tailor the session and make sure we're helpful. So answer in the chat, don't be shy. I'm going to make you sit here in awkward silence until I get at least one answer. Ithaca. Okay, cool. It is late in Ithaca. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Austin, Texas. Okay. Some Texas representation, Tim. Irvine, California. Hanover. Okay. All over. Awesome. Keep them coming. And then again, if you have anything that you particularly want to talk about tonight, answer in the chat. And if you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And we'll also be covering a lot of the most frequently asked questions this evening. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but do want to give you a little bit of an overview of who we are and why you should care to be here tonight. So we are kind of building this one-stop shop to help you reach whatever your goal may be across test, admissions, career, anything. We have our main product is coaching. You can actually book time with experts like we have on this panel. And this is amazing. I am a coach. I've gotten coaching. I've witnessed firsthand the incredible power that comes from getting expertise, personalized help in a one-on-one setting. It really has changed my life already just being a part of Leland. We also do a ton of boot camps, live cohort-based courses where you join a cohort of other people that are applying to deferred MBA programs and kind of go through a curriculum. We'll get into that a little bit later. They're super helpful. Highly recommend checking those out. And then we also a ton of events just like this. We love helping you guys in whatever way we can and making that knowledge as accessible as possible. So thanks for being here. And again, make sure you've registered for a free account on Leland if you want invites to future ones. We are very passionate about deferred MBA programs here at Leland. In fact, we've helped over a third of Stanford and Harvard's admits over the last 2 years, which is just an insane stat. Our CEO actually got into GSB and HBS as a deferred admit himself, and then started coaching for deferred MBAs, and that kind of spiraled into Leland. So deferred MBA programs are near and dear to our heart. We know a lot of these people on the screen personally. I went to my undergrad with Reagan Curtis. Like, there's so many incredible people on this, and we would love to have you on here one day. Like, we are here to help you get into the deferred MBA programs of your dreams. So thanks for being here. If you've never worked with a coach before, some of the ways that people have found help through Leland, through coaches like this, truly end-to-end application. Like, if you want someone to kind of take you by the hand and say, let's do this, and then let's do this, and then let's do this, and really have like someone in your corner throughout the whole process, you can do that. We have comprehensive packages. If you want help on application strategy, kind of trying to figure out your story, or in what angle you should apply, you can do that. Essays, which we'll get into tonight. Resume editing. The MBA resume is not the same thing as a career resume, so that's something that we get a lot of applicants looking for help in. Letters of recommendation, and then GMAT and GRE, and a ton more. But these are some of the ways you can start getting started. If you would like to, if you're interested in coaching, or you just want to like explore what the budget would look like, or get matched to a coach even, you can schedule time with someone on our team. I even take these calls. You might get me. You can schedule a time using that QR code. We can also drop the link in the chat. But hop on a call, see how we can help. We genuinely are here to help you reach your next goal, and and so let us help you. Okay, let's get into the panel. I'm super excited to talk about essays. Like I said, I know there's a lot of anxiety that goes into essays, and they're no easy feat either. Coaches, I want to start off a little bit of a high level. What is your kind of best tip for writing world-class MBA application essays? Tim, I would love for you to start.
Yeah, so there's a lot I could say. I think one tip I would give, just for all of you to think about, is to start early, honestly. Writing essays is a very iterative process. It's like really hard to give something like give somebody something that's actually insightful. So it takes some time to think about what you want to say, and then get it down on paper, and then sort of refine it, and tweak it and polish it. And I've even had clients that I've worked with before where we go, start working on an essay together, get halfway through, and then feel like we're headed in the wrong direction, and kind of scrap it and start over going a different direction. And so it just takes time. It takes time. You have to do some brainstorming, and have the time to kind of think and sit on it, and really refine it. So I think like one of my best tips would be to just start early, to make sure you have that time to get to a fully fleshed out product.
I love that, Timothy. I had a coach tell me that there was a positive correlation, like a very clear one, between the number of essay drafts and the likelihood of acceptance. Like, your first draft is almost like 90% likely not going to be the one that you submit. I think that's a great tip to start off on. Emily, what is your best tip?
My best tip is always ask yourself why, and explain why. I feel like regardless of the client I'm working with, on the type of school, type of essay, I sound like a broken record. I'm always like, but why did you feel that way? Or why did you do that? The self-reflection that goes into writing a good essay, and thinking about what's important to you and what you want to do with your career, or what your values are, all those whys are what really make essays resonate with the reader. And it goes so much further beyond telling them like, oh, I have these goals, or I'm a great team player, or this was a really important experience. Like, it's really the whys of all of these things in your life that make up who you are and will set you apart.
Yeah, no easy feat. We know this is not easy either. Claire, what is your best tip?
You two both took mine. Those were great points. I mean, thinking back to when I was in everyone's shoes, I truly was like building the airplane while I was flying it, and would have loved that advice and some coaching when I was in their seats. The only thing I'll say, especially in the deferred process, my favorite part about it is this should be a really amazing moment of reflection and like self-reflection. Using this time both to make a great essay, but to figure out, where have you been? Where are you going? And how does an MBA fit into that? So it's that why that Emily's just talking about, but really, like, where do you fit into it all? And what makes you unique? And what's that like aha or spark moment that you can bring to your essay and your overall application is what I would really focus on and think about just broadly.
Such good answers, coaches, and we're going to get into a lot of the weeds of what they're saying too. So to start off with, I want to kind of like, let's zoom out a little bit. Essays, how do they fit into the broader application? Emily, you've been helping applicants for, like you said, almost a decade, in working with all of those clients. How have you kind of seen what is the role that essays have played in those clients' applications?
Yeah, I think the essays are what, who these people are beyond their accomplishments. Most people applying to top programs, have really great work experience or good grades and good test scores and all of that good stuff. They're impressive in some sort of way, if not many. But the essays are really not so much about that. It's about who the applicant is as a person, what's important to them, and what are their vulnerabilities, what are some of their biggest challenges. It's that human aspect that you're not going to get in a form or a resume, or maybe even a letter of recommendation that's trying to support you and put you in the best light. So I think that's the number one rule of the essays. Secondarily, I would also say it's a chance for the applicant to show their passion for the program and for the school. So I think that's something you can do basically in your essay or essays and in your interview, but not in other parts of the application.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard it described as like the only place of the application where you're actually talking directly to the admissions committee, which makes it such valuable real estate. Super, super helpful. Some of the key, I would love to hear your thoughts, Claire, on some of the key elements of the MBA application essay, particularly having gone through this experience and been admitted to 2 of the top programs. What are some of the elements that you think resonated with the admissions committees in your essay?
Oh, so many different elements. I think, very, very tactically, the most important thing is that hook is like, why should you read and how can we grab attention right away? And that really is the like summary and summation. I think the key element to me, I think very similar to what Emily was saying, is that this is your one opportunity to speak to the admissions committee. And so this is your chance to tie it all together and to go from a list of accomplishments in your resume into a cohesive narrative. Additionally, I think a really key element, especially in a deferred process, is both like the backwards looking, but a really strong forwards looking why, and connecting the dots into what you're going to do. You're sitting here as a senior in college. You're likely you're not going to enroll the next year. So it's really, what are you going to do between now and your MBA? And how is the MBA going to continue you onto this path? That is an element that is really important in a deferral that cannot be missed and requires a lot of reflection, forward thinking, and thought that I think is incredibly crucial in an essay.
Yeah, I love that. Tim, in those 100+ admits, what do you feel like are the elements that have kind of distinguished the best of the best?
So yeah, I really like what Claire said. And I guess maybe I would just even build on that. To me, what really makes an essay stand out is the level of insight in sort of the quality of the content. Like I can tell you, having read hundreds of these essays, right? I can tell pretty quickly how well the applicant knows the program and knows like why they even want to go, right? It's like, are you just calling out things that they talk about in the info session, or are you tying them, like Claire said, to your own personal career narrative and what the problem statement in your application, like why you need an MBA and citing specific things? Are you calling out like, aspects of the program that every program has, and it's sort of like table stakes? It's pretty easy then for me to kind of infer you don't really know why you need to go to Harvard or why you need to go to Stanford. And so there's really kind of a depth of insight, and I would say it's the exact same on the more personal narratives, right? From deferred applicants, they're going to want to see maturity, they're going to want to see leadership, they're going to want to see high EQ, and so there's an opportunity for you to share that you've been thoughtful about what you've learned from your experiences, and you've demonstrated resilience, and like all of these sort of deeper themes. It's the quality of those insights coming through that really makes them pop.
Yeah, something that maybe you and Claire have both hinted at, but not called out explicitly. It sounds like a key here is maybe specificity. It's like, yeah, do you know yourself and do you know the program? But then can you like be really specific in what that is? Would you agree with that, Tim?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Hmm.
it has to be specific. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
To
Okay.
build on that, one of the things
Yeah,
I
please
always
do.
find myself saying, in addition to why, is show, don't tell. I see a lot of drafts that are like, I'm great at this, or I'm this kind of person. And it's so easy to like tell what you want the admissions committee to know, but it doesn't really have, it's not convincing unless you show them. So it's these, very specific anecdotes or things you did that you can show how you embodied like the qualities that you're trying to convince them you have. So specificity, whether it's your qualities, things about the school, your career goals, like specificity always wins the day. I think
Yeah.
we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I love that because I don't think it's the most intuitive thing. Like college essays, they tell you be so creative, and MBA is like, no, who are you? Why do you matter in the world? Tell us very, very granularly. I love this. I think it really well helps these candidates stand out. I just saw the question in the chat about archetypes. We're going to get to that a little bit later. So hold off. We have a couple questions on that. Okay, I love this next question because also something that I don't think is super intuitive, particularly compared to your college application essays. Emily, I want to go back to you because you've already mentioned self-reflection in this. We've talked a little bit about the role that self-reflection plays. I would love for you to focus on how can these applicants, aspiring applicants, start getting down that path of self-reflection?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a collaborative process. I think you can kind of start off on your own, thinking about some of the major moments in your life. Why were these important to you? But I do think it gets easier to have a partner in that, whether it's a coach or your friends and family. Ideally, like several people, just kind of reflecting on, what is really important to you and why, or what do you want to do next? So usually how I work with my clients is I have them fill out this questionnaire, quite exhaustive actually. And sometimes I learn things in there that they will never, ever tell me in person. But it really forces them to sit down and think about, I always get, I haven't thought about these things in so long, like, since I was in middle school or whatever. So, working with someone, doing some of these like questionnaires and journaling and deep thinking. And then I also like to, after the questionnaire, have a 2-hour free form call, just going through some of these answers, asking open-ended questions, just kind of letting my clients explore these answers, word vomit all over me. And that's usually how I come up with some of the strategy and positioning for my clients. But I'm going to echo what Tim said earlier on essays. Like the self-reflection process should not be rushed. This is something you should be thinking about for a long time, kind of working on for several weeks, if not months, and bringing others into the process as well.
Yeah, I love that. One thing in particular that you kind of said is I love the variation because I think that's true with self-reflection of there's no like one size fits all here approach. I've had people who said like I went on walks and like voice dictated to myself because just like the talking was a lot easier. We have a coach who applied to deferred programs who journaled for an hour every day before school, and that was her mode of reflection. So self-reflection is important, but the mode it comes down to like what is best for you and what will help you do that. I think that was an excellent answer. Claire, Timothy, anything to add on self-reflection?
Tim, if you do want to go.
I guess maybe just like one thing that I was thinking about, like Emily, love what you said. I feel like I just wanted to kind of double down on your point of like getting some external feedback. Like I feel like what can be so helpful, I think about my own process, and I had a coach that kind of helped me through the application process. And I felt like there were two things that were helpful, and I hear this a lot from clients now. One is like just brainstorming, pulling out things I may not have seen, asking me kind of questions to go deeper, or even calling out like, oh, that's interesting, like elaborate more. But I think the second thing is also like giving you direction on like what would the adcom care about? Like there's a lot of things I could talk about. There's a lot of directions I could take this. And so sometimes I'll have prospective clients even reach out and say like I've been doing a lot of thinking, and honestly, like I'm just feeling a little lost in like the sea of like maybe good ideas, maybe some are good, maybe some aren't. Like I don't really know what the adcom wants. And so I think that like direction and how we like shape this into something that's like really cohesive and really impactful can be super helpful as well.
I love that.
Yeah,
Go for it, Claire.
Yeah, that was exactly it. I think just to build on that, like it's easy to spin your wheels, especially if you're already thinking about this and you're in this room. You are a high achieving person who holds yourself to this high standard. So it's easy to get stuck in your head. And so as much as like I help my clients and my friends who have gone through this process do that initial thinking, it is really, really helpful to voice it externally at some point to get some feedback and to get some translation from somebody else. The last thing I'll add that I think self-reflection is so, so crucial to is when you're starting to think about your overall strategy for your essays, for your application, it is so important to figure out what your authentic voice is and what the why you and the special sauce is. And that's what you can develop in self-reflection to then make it cohesive, to make it strong. And I think that's what the external voices really helped me pull out was like, what parts spark? What parts about me should I dive into deeper? What parts can I lean back on? And I really think that's where self-reflection helps. But I totally echo the idea that at some point, getting that out of your head and onto paper, out loud in a conversation is really, really important.
Yeah, that was such good advice, coaches. I think the big point here is that we lose complete objectivity just by like being in our own bodies, right? And like, but hearing Tim, I know I was talking to you about this not that long ago. Of like people will say these things about them that feel so mundane to like their everyday, but then you hear them and you're like, you're amazing. Like talk about that. You just need to hear it from someone else sometimes.
Yeah, Amelia, to that point, like I know we've been talking a lot about the big questions, like who are you and what do you want in life and what's your special sauce? But I also kind of love like uncovering the quirky nuggets, I call them, about people that come up in these conversations or these questionnaires that, if I'm working with this person, I will remember something they said and we're drafting the third draft of an essay. And I'm like, why don't you work this random like thing that'll be super memorable in there? And especially for some of these like kind of drier prompts, like I'm thinking about like Wharton or Columbia, like how will you contribute 500-word career essays? You can work some of these little quirks in and it just like makes them come alive in a way that can be really hard to do if you're sitting by yourself, like trying to think about how to stand out. So that the quirky nuggets are basically what I live for.
Yeah, I love the quirky nuggets. We'll get into this too, but also for like pattern recognition, of, oh, this is a theme that you have kept saying that you maybe don't see because you're in it, but I can see it from the outside. Yeah, such good advice, coaches. Okay, we've done our self-reflection, we've journaled, we've talked to a coach or a mentor or someone, we like have some ideas in some direction. Now I'm ready to draft and actually get those ideas on paper. Where do I start? Claire, I would love your thoughts here.
So, like we said, starting early and just starting is the biggest thing. It really, truly getting pen to paper is the hardest part, at least for me and my clients in process. So I think that's crucial. And I think the best thing to do when you start is not to self-edit, right? Especially if you're going to be editing later down the line, you're going to be bringing other people into the process. Do yourself a favor and just let yourself brainstorm, let yourself start drafting, and then edit much later. Do not let yourself, like sometimes I'll literally say, do not press the delete button. Just write, just get the brainstorm, get the bullets out, and then go from there. But so I think that's the key. You can also then, after having like a cohesive strategy before you even essay of like, what are the 3 or 4 words you want them to read in your essay? What are like the key traits or things you want to get across? What are key points? And like, what's your why? Using that as the shell to then dictate and to list out kind of what key experiences, what key milestones in your life have shaped you can start that essay process and to get you off of that writer's block because it's so hard to overcome. And that's what I would say is like my general tips to start.
Yeah, echo the like just get pen to paper. I think most people's drafts are terrible. They're like regurgitations of their resume. Like it's not it's but you've broken the dam, you have started, and that's what's important.
Totally.
Emily, you mentioned like these questions that people should be thinking about. We've kind of hinted at some of them. And of course, like the big one is just answer the question of the prompt. But in the back of the mind, I would love for you kind of to explicitly call out what are some of these questions when I'm brainstorming I should be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to answering the prompt, which I see people not do all the time, another thing I see is like they end up maybe answering the prompt, but not really telling the admissions committee anything about themselves. So when you're thinking about what's going to be in this essay, I would think about what do you want to use this essay prompt to tell the admissions committee about yourself? And I've also seen a lot of applicants be really humble. They don't like talking about themselves. They'll use, kind of statements that don't use I or there's we or blah. And some we's are fine, but there should be a lot of I statements. I. And it's really uncomfortable, but this is a chance for you to pack in as much rich information about you and what you can bring to the program and who you are in any essay prompt. So I think that's one of the bottom line most important things to think about when you're about to start an essay. And then I have one more tactical thing. I know you didn't ask for, but since we're talking about drafting and not censoring yourself, I find a lot of people get freaked out by the word count right off the bat. And they're like, oh my God, especially like HBS has these prompts this year, which are 250 words, which is crazy. And it just stifles people. So I always tell clients I'm working with, like, yeah, I don't want to see 1,000-word first draft, but like, don't limit yourself to the actual word count. It could be, 200, 300 words over. We'll get some ideas out there and we'll figure out what works. But yeah, just like Claire said, get all the ideas out there. Don't delete. It's going to be icky and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, in clients I've worked with, it's so much easier to delete content than it is to add content. So I would way rather they go over than under.
Yep.
And can I just
Yeah,
throw
go for
out
it.
maybe one more point real quick here is just reading this question. I actually like when I work with clients, I recommend that we do general brainstorming on the essays like way before you get to writing. I think Emily alluded to this earlier, but I recommend that you all start with like a pretty robust kind of strategy session at the beginning of this whole process, where you're sort of thinking about all the inputs, like the resume, the LORs, like what you think your recommenders are going to speak to, and how like the essays can kind of support that, and really see this as a whole cohesive narrative instead of like looking at the pieces super individually, because that's how the adcom's going to see it, right? They're looking at all these pieces to like build your profile holistically. And so like hopefully by the time you sort of get to the essays, you have some of those general themes, and then you can go into the deeper brainstorming. But I just want to make that point.
Oh, that's such a good point. We see so many essays that are resumes. They're literally repetitions of I did this and then I did this and then I did this. And that's such like a strategic thing to do, is step back and say, okay, what piece is this playing? And you can do that with the letters of recommendation and all of these different pieces. I love that point. Tim, I want to go back to you for this actually. We see, I think a lot of deferred applicants in particular struggle with this because they don't have as much work experience to differentiate themselves. So if I feel like I'm kind of a standard, college student, I've been in some clubs, I've done some internships, I went to high school. on top of this, how can I like show my unique perspective? How can I stand out? How can I differentiate myself among this increasingly competitive crowd?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one that, a lot of, a lot of clients I work with, it's like something on their mind. I would say there's a few ways to really stand out, right? I think one that we've already talked about some tonight is just being really specific. Like the more specific you can be about your own ambitions, the more you can show how you've thought through them. Maybe there's some credible signals in your past of things you've done that kind of demonstrate that interest. And the more specific you can be about the program, specific aspects of it that you're really excited about, show that you've done your homework, that you've thought about how it applies to you. Sort of related to that is the quality of those insights, right? When you're answering the question about why the school, like having really kind of thoughtful points. I tell a lot of my clients, like I can't tell you the number of times when I was in admissions booth, I heard people talk about the flexible curriculum. But it actually wasn't that often that I heard them talk about like why they would uniquely benefit from it. Like something like, I don't have a business background. And so, with a lot of peers who have investment banking or consulting experience, I would get lost in a required curriculum classroom with, them asking more advanced questions. And so this allows me to go back and get some of the foundational learnings. Like that kind of level of thoughtfulness will really resonate. And then I think the other point I would say on maybe some of the more personal style of essays, I know we're going to kind of talk about the different archetypes in a second, but I think a lot of applicants feel pressure because it's such a highly competitive process to really present this like, I think I felt this way a little bit to some extent when I was applying, to present this like just really good narrative and like almost like perfect profile. And it sounds silly to say, but like the adcom, they're humans, right? They understand like we all have had our own sort of learning journey. And so I would say the more you can share like the why behind the decisions you've made, maybe even like some things that haven't worked out or things that were really tough for you, and how you worked through that and how you reacted to it and learned and grew, and kind of show some of that like resilience or growth. That is not lost on them. That will help you stand out as well. So
I love that reminder of the human piece. I feel like I need to remind myself of that almost daily, and my clients as well, that these are humans. The adcom sounds so scary, but they're humans on the other side of that table. Claire, I would love your thoughts on this. I think you talk about this on your Leland Coach profile, that like prior to your high school job was like Starbucks barista, like normal human, admitted to both HBS and GSB deferred. What's your advice here?
Yeah, I think it was such an interesting experience for me personally, and for a lot of the people I've worked with who like technically might be a traditional applicant, right? I had a return offer to go back to Bain, New York, and was starting to be like, wow, I'm going to be against every single other management consultant, every other person. But what sets you apart and what's such a great opportunity in a deferred essay specifically is that you don't have that much work experience, but you do have life experience. So whereas people who are applying in the general pool are speaking to like 4 years, 5 years of like actual work experience, I think, and at least with my clients, you have a little bit more wiggle room to find the uniqueness in like the way that you think, your personal background. And so, for example, I was a Starbucks barista, and that was more impactful to me than any of my internships in college. Truly, truly. I still write about it in all of my essays. I wrote about it in my fellowship application at Knight Hennessy this past year. Doing that, being different, and understanding like what I'm coming to the table with was huge. And so I really think like that authenticity and that personal voice, showing how you think about things, what makes you tick, and what really impacts you is what can make you stand out. And again, the thing that I will repeat and yell to the top of my lungs is like, let the admission, like AdCom, be the one to decide that you're too standard or that you're not traditional enough, right? All you can do is tell your story as authentically and well-rounded as you can. And that's what your job is. Your job isn't to decide whether you are the right candidate, the perfect candidate. It's to show yourself in the best way and the best light for you. And that's, again, we keep saying it, it's the inputs, it's the editing, it's really truly thinking about those things. But my essay, I think about it all the time. I actually reread it this past year. I wrote it 6 years ago. Truly, my life has changed in so many ways. I've changed in so many ways. But I spent so much time reflecting that the core tenets that I talked about sound like me today. I spent so much time developing how I think, what I care about, and what matters to me. And those things shouldn't change or can change, but might not. And I think that's where you really stand out. It's that like layer below your resume, that layer below it. It's how you think about it. It's how you put it together. It's how you present yourself.
Oh, I love that. So much good in that answer. I wish, yeah, go back and watch and listen to both of those answers from those two. That was great. One thing that I want to add here is we throw around this word like unique, right? You have to have a unique perspective. What's unique to you? And I think a lot of people get freaked out about that because how unique are we? Like we're all humans. We're all like living the human experience. I think it all goes back to what Emily said at the very beginning, which is the whys and the specificity of like, okay, maybe you really, really care about empowering others. And that's like your theme. How you can differentiate and get unique is the why, like connect that theme to your experience of what Claire just said. So like, why do you care about empowering people? What are the specific experiences in your life that have prepared you to care about that? You know, it's like, so go deep, go as deep as you absolutely can. It is self-reflection is maybe the theme of tonight. Okay. Archetypes. We've already had some questions in the chat, so we will talk about this. We're going to talk about two tonight. There's different ways to bucket essays. We kind of bucket it in three. So personal statement, which is like the who are you? It's like the Stanford GSB, what matters most to you and why. It's these like who are you as a person and why should we care kind of questions. The other one that we will talk about is why this school. That's that Wharton one Emily was talking about of like how will you contribute to Wharton, and Columbia I think has one like this as well. And then we usually do like a third that's like the random ones, like some of Kellogg's are kind of random. They also have an essay, a values one that's personal statement. But so usually it will be bucketed as personal statement, like who are you, why this school, tell us why you want to come to us and not someone else, and then kind of like this other bucket. So personal statement essays, who are you, why should we care? Emily, these are maybe the hardest essays for people. How would you recommend they approach, write, draft, all the things?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're going back to a lot of the same themes we've talked about, but it really is the self-reflection. Like, what are these pivotal moments in your life? What are your values? Like asking yourself all these questions and involving others in the process. And I think, especially, with like prompts like Stanford, what matters most and why, a lot of times I've seen clients have to try different ideas on for size. Like you might think it's one thing and you write it down and it's not. Like I would just say go into these personal statement essays knowing that it might be like trying on a wedding dress or something. Like you're not going to know until you start. So I would just say, do the self-reflection and also like be patient. I've seen so many people try to rush it. Like they just want to get the right answer and get going and move on. But this is really an exercise in resilience and patience and determination, and just trying things out and taking risks. So it can be really fun and exciting if you have the right mindset.
And the right coach. That we had a question related to this in the chat that Tim, I'd love your thoughts on. Someone asked, in the more value-based essays, should it be more, I'm gonna rephrase this question a little bit. Should it be, do I need to include work? Should it just be personal? Is there like, do I have to like tailor my answer or make sure that I'm talking about work or personal, or is there anything that I should stay away from?
Yeah, it's a great question. So here's what I will often tell clients is you can include like work related experiences. What you really want to stay away from here is like your career ambitions, sort of things that relate then to the school. Like if you think about the sort of standard, think about Booth or GSB, where they sort of split it. You have a personal side and then you have like a professional side. This is more about what motivates you, what your values are, how your character has developed over time, and less about like what you want to be when you grow up, what you want to do immediately after business school. So I would stay away from that type of stuff. I think kind of related to this question in the chat, like when I read this, one thing I will tell you that I see quite a bit that doesn't work is sort of these like humble brag essays. where it's just like, here's a lot of my accomplishments and like how great I've been. And it's because I care so much and I just love people so much. And I think, there's a lot of really accomplished people applying. So not to kind of minimize, your experiences, but I think they want to see like more kind of reflection and candidly, like even just like a bit more authenticity than that. Um, and so I think you have to be careful, right? We've all sort of pursued certain things because they're passions of ours. And so when you start talking about your passions, it's easy to talk about career success or even personal success, like volunteering and the kind of the cool things that you've done because of that. Maybe like a startup that you launched or, like different things. And I think we have to be like, I would encourage you to be really careful to kind of think about your own development journey, your own learnings, and the values or character attributes that you've sort of acquired along the way, to give it a little bit more depth. So sorry, this is kind of a 2-for-1. And yeah, those are a
No,
couple
I
thoughts in
love
my
that.
mind.
And the humble brag, that is a common mistake. We see it all the time. Claire, I would love, so this question is on personal statement, and the next one is on why this school. Stanford has a why Stanford, and who are you and why? Will you tell me how, way back when you wrote these for Deferred, how did you approach these 2 essays?
Yeah. And I just want to echo, I think what Timothy, you said is so true. Like the humble brags are great and fine, but you need to add that level of analysis and reflection of like what you learned from it, how that informs you moving forward, and why that makes you a better candidate, community member, and why it makes you need to go to business school to like use that almost. So it's like, fine, drop that you did this cool fundraiser, awesome, but we need to explain what you got out of it, what you brought to it, and why that matters. Again, the why that Emily keeps talking about. In terms of the essays that I approached, I actually just dropped it in the chat, and I am just like a very woo-woo kind of coach, so you'll get used to that as much tactical as I am. I make all of my clients watch the Steve Jobs Connect the Dots speech before they even start drafting. I don't think it's the exact reason you have to, but it's just like this beautiful self-reflection of like, truly like starting from point A to B, what pivotal things, again, have you done, learned, or seen that impact how you show up today? And so, again, I think the thing that's very interesting specifically about the Deferred program is it requires this like forward-looking path and acknowledging that you haven't done it all yet, haven't seen it all, but you're on a path or trajectory that it would make sense to need to go to business school at some point and to do things in between now and then. So I think that specificity comes in really strongly when I think about approaching it. And so my essay was specifically about impact meaning a ton to me. And again, I hadn't done that many jobs that like where I had worked as a barista, I'd worked on political campaigns. I was going to go work in a really corporate straight-laced job. But I had to make this personal narrative of the fact that all of this was giving me the tools and the skills that I needed in order to make impact at scale for people like me. And that's why I brought in the personal. My mom was lucky enough to be bused during desegregation to get an education. My dad was where he was because his grandpa got to use the GI Bill. So education and access to opportunity was the core of what I want, how I got to where I was and how I wanted to impact the world. And so I started with that. I introduced myself and then I built onto it of like, but why do I need to go to business school? Why is Stanford going to help me? And I used both my personal statement and also my why this schools to learn more about myself and to drive home the point that I would both add to the community, which I think people forget. It's not just what you're going to get out of the school, but also what you're going to bring as a specific individual to them and what I was going to get out of it as well. And so that's kind of how I approached it. That was a really long-winded, winding response. So hopefully that answered it to some extent, but I'll pause there.
It totally did. That was great. And I'm gonna go watch that video after.
It's so good. Whenever
yeah.
I'm just like sad, I just watch it. It just reminds me like truly like we are so lucky that things happen to us and that we get to happen to the world. But really, truly, it's like, how do we use these opportunities and how do we build this story around it to continue forward in a really specific way?
Yeah, that's amazing. That was a great answer. Timothy, or Emily, anything to add on why this school essays in particular?
I think I touched on this just a little bit before, but I would really connect it to you. Like I know it sounds really simple, but I'm telling you, like it gets missed so often. Um, And I would call out things that are unique to the school. Like these adcoms, like any competitive market, like they know the offerings of their peer programs. Like the number of times I hear a student talk about the negotiations class and how excited they are. And I just like am like every one of these schools has the same negotiations class. Um, and so like it just it just sort of signals that you don't know what makes the program unique, right? So I would say like do the homework, understand like what their distinct value proposition is, like in the MBA top MBA space, and then tie those things to you, like make it feel really real to them. And I think that authenticity will pay off.
Just to pop in, one thing that to add to his research point, one thing that you all are very lucky is every single program now has at least like 5 wannabe influencers who will be like live, but truly, who will be vlogging, TikToking, Instagramming their day to day at every single one of these programs. And so what I would encourage you to do is, yes, go to the info sessions, yes, do this, but there is somebody for every single top MBA program who is giving you the like in and outs, mentioning things that like you would need to talk to a student, visit campus to see. And those can be real differentiators. You don't have to talk about like their name, but they really do bring you into a lens to show you what it's actually like to be a student there.
I love that. Emily.
Okay. I would also
Damn.
going a little older school, like networking with them directly to networking with students. It's so easy to do. It takes a lot of time. So a lot of people don't do it. But having those like very specific things that resonate with you that someone told you. I tell a lot of my clients for these longer essays to like name drop who you talk to and their year. Like it's name dropping is annoying, but it also like shows the admissions committee that you have made an effort to like reach out to these people and talk to them and really understand like how this program fits with what you want to do. So the old school networking cannot be underestimated. And MBAs are just like awesome people. So 9 times out of 10, they will say yes and be excited to talk about their experience. So yeah, I'd add that. And just to like, I feel like we're driving each other's points home, but to Tim's point, like in these essays, I always encourage my clients to like not think about like why this school, but why you for this school. Like, because I see so many drafts that are just like telling the school how great they are and blah, blah, blah. But no, you want to tell them why you like what your priorities are and essentially why you should be at this program.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that I want to add to the networking is like targeted networking. Like I had a student, a client come and talk to me and they said, I found every single person who was an alumni of that program in the career path that I wanted. And I asked them how going to that school impacted their career. And she said I had a whole sheet of like 20 things that were very specific ways that, again, this is exactly what you just said, Emily, that was like perfect for me and what I wanted with my career. You should absolutely talk to students. You should talk to alumni, talk to people that are associated with the program. Like, yeah, do your research. Okay, this one is an important one. So I actually want all of you to chime in on this. I think I loved your point, Claire, that like you should lean into life experiences. I think the flip side of that is I don't have a lot of real work experience. So maybe I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, or what are my like long-term goal plans, and how do I even make a case for why an MBA when I'm not sure what that is? Claire, what are your thoughts on this?
Totally. I think that's one of the hardest parts. And I think this is where specificity comes in. And the one thing I just want to like free everyone of is the things that I wrote in my essay. No one has ever quizzed me on them. So it's okay to pick something that feels good and correct, and you will not be held to it. It will not be the end all be all of your life. But it is important to like really specifically think about why an MBA makes sense. And truly, if you are stretching and having trouble making that story of what you want to do, how an MBA will help it, maybe there's a question of whether or not you actually want an MBA or should be applying to an MBA program. I know that's like probably bad advice from somebody who wants to like you to apply, but truly like there should be some form of narrative that starts to come along that makes sense. There's a reason you're in this room thinking about this. And so it's really just articulating that, but it's okay. And I think admissions committees know they're not expecting you to have done everything and figured everything out. So it's this balance, I think, of figuring out what parts is it okay to be like, I'm a little unsure of, and the MBA is actually going to help me explore that path and figure out the like means or the way that I'm going to go about it. What things am I really certain about that I care about? Those things you can be very specific and honest towards. But like, I think it's both okay to have some clear places that you don't know everything. And that's exactly why you're getting an MBA and exactly why you need some more life experience before you go. But also, it's okay to like plant your feet and say, this is what I think I want to do. And like to say, that's the path that I'm going to follow. And this is how this is going to enable me to do it.
Yeah, they're gonna come and throw you in jail because you didn't do what you said you were gonna do, Claire.
Oh, I'd be in jail.
Emily, Tim, would love your thoughts here. Also, one thing that I would love your thoughts on as well, if you want to speak to this, is I've heard that every applicant to an MBA program has to answer the why an MBA. Deferred applicants also have to kind of answer this question of why am I applying now versus down the road. So how can I like weave that into my application, my essays? I will leave it open to either of you.
Yeah, I think this career goals question can be really intimidating for deferred and for a lot of any MBA candidates, really. There are so many people that don't know exactly what they want to do with their lives and they want to have an MBA to figure that out. I think, one of the things that works really well for these essays, even if you don't know, is having this well thought out vision for what you think. And a lot of research goes into that. So I spend a ton of time with my clients on I actually have a career brainstorming template that is on Leland Plus. And we start there before we even start drafting like a career essay. And I make them like research roles, talk to people in those roles, understand what you do in those roles. Is that a good fit for your experience and what you want to do? What areas do you need to develop? Then, the development areas kind of go into then why MBA. They all build on each other. And if you do the research and understand these different career paths and what's a good fit for you, then you can kind of build this really compelling, thoughtful vision. If you end up doing that, great. If you don't, that's fine. But what you've demonstrated to the admissions committee is you've put a lot of thought into this and you are, making really thoughtful decisions and trying to build your career, thinking further out for the deferred MBA and what you're going to do when you get to the program. And I think that's honestly the biggest exercise in the career goals essay, more so than like, is this impressive? Is this does this sound right? Oh my gosh, I don't have all the answers, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's really about demonstrating your process and what makes sense in the context of, your experiences and what you want to do.
I love that. I want to like highlight something that you just said, which is like this point about authenticity. I think especially for deferred, a lot of people apply and have this like idea of what the ideal MBA candidate looks like, about what the school is looking for. Take that and throw it in the trash. They're looking for cool, unique, high potential individuals. They're not looking for like this mold of an MBA candidate. I love that point, Emily. I think it's so important. Timothy, anything to add?
Yeah, maybe just to kind of answer your question from before too a little bit, or build on what Emily said. There are a ton of reasons to apply deferred, right? I mentioned some of this in the kickoff yesterday too, but like you have a ton more optionality in your career. Like once you're sort of in, you can take risks, you can explore stuff you're interested in. I've had clients that got admitted to their dream school and then like try to launch a startup like in between, right? So like you have tons of sort of optionality there. You get connected to the community and to the school like early, like you're gonna have like a sort of built-in network and like events, deferred applicant or deferred admit events, and then there's also like this like just the more times you can swing at something, like the higher the probability, right? And so like if something like if you get into your dream school the first time, that's like amazing. If you don't, like you can apply again, and maybe you have like you get in somewhere else, and so you have optionality there and tons of choices. So like I think there's just like sort of like there's a ton of sort of reasons to talk about why to apply deferred, and then how you would use that time between to kind of help accelerate your career, and honestly to like help you prepare to kind of make the most out of the program and to contribute the most into the community.
Thanks, Timothy. Yeah, I love that. Emily mentioned Leland Plus. We actually have like this whole self-paced course specifically for deferred MBA with like video guides and templates and resources and example essays from admits. It's incredibly valuable. And if you buy a comprehensive package with any of these coaches, you actually get free access to it, but you can also subscribe individually. Emma will drop the link in the chat if that's something you're interested in. It's really helpful. It's built by coaches for applicants. Okay. Last question. So much good stuff, coaches. I hope you guys in the here tonight like feel better about tackling these essays. I wish I could go back in college and apply because I feel so prepared to write these essays. Tactical tips, and this can be like driving home something that we've already talked about. It could be something that we didn't have time to talk about tonight. What is kind of a final tip that you want to leave these attendees with tonight? Emily, I will start with you.
Oh man, I want to say something new, even though I feel like we've covered all the most important things. I will go super tactical and say, don't delete any of your old drafts and like go back and look at them occasionally. So, in the age of Google Docs now, instead of having all these separate documents, I usually want people to put all of their drafts together in the same doc. And I can't tell you how many times I go back and say, oh, like this thing we thought, your first draft was horrible, but there's this one sentence in here, this one point. So you may end up with your final draft being like a little bit from here and a little bit from here, and you just never know how it's going to end up. So keep all of the thoughts you've put out for use later.
That is not a tip I've heard, Emily. That is a really good tip. Timothy, what's your final tip?
Yeah, I would say I would be like thoughtful about who you solicit feedback from. I have seen applicants like ask everyone what they think, and you're just gonna get like kind of a vomit of opinions that will not be helpful. And so I think, I mean, the admissions process has changed like substantially, since I don't know, since your like 60-year-old mentor got into Harvard, I'll say. And so I think it can be distracting to sort of like get a bunch of random feedback, and candidly like a lot of people just don't know. Even friends who got admitted like recently, like there's real question if they like understand why they got admitted. They were getting feedback from a consultant or coach, supporting them through the process. And so I think you have to be really thoughtful kind of the voices that you're listening to make sure it's sort of pointed and moving you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm seeing nods from Claire and Emily, and I will clap snaps too. That very, very good advice. Claire, bring us home.
Yeah, those were such good ones. So I'm trying to think of, I was about to cop out and be like, have fun, but I'm trying to, but here's a tactical one. And I think that is important now is no matter who you engage, no matter how much help you have, we as coaches like can help you get through this process. But like, especially in the world of ChatGPT and a million online resources that tell you what the right thing to do is, the most tactical advice I could give is that this needs to come from you, and that you need to like genuinely be the one to do this process. Like you need to write the words yourself. You need to think the thoughts yourself, and you can have as much help, maybe too much help, as we've said with the certain types of feedback. But I truly think like use everything as a tool in your toolkit, but know that you have everything inside of you to get this pen to paper and to get this across the line. And so just use all the tools that are afforded to you, but really like just practically like this is you.
I love that. I have chills, coaches. All three of those tips were such an amazing ending to an incredible session. Guys who are here tonight, if you wouldn't mind joining me in thanking these coaches in the chat, they're here of their own volition, helping you guys navigate this process that we know is scary and hard. Thank you so much, Claire, Tim, and Emily, for being here. Really appreciate your time and your wisdom. Go to the other Deferred MBA events. These are awesome. These are free. These are here as free resources to help you. There's a ton of them. If you're here tonight, you should get the email with the rest of the schedule. And if you are interested in working with any of these 3 coaches, highly recommend working with any one of them. I can attest to the expertise and the excellence of all 3 of them. This is not bad feedback. This is the feedback that you want. We've sent their links in the chat a couple times, and we will send it one more time. You can also meet with us if you want to explore options, talk about budget, get matched specifically to a coach from your background. We can do all these things on our team as well. Have an excellent evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.